live pop-up event with Nimsy Insights. We like to do these live pop-up events, frankly, because they require very minimal planning. Don't have to do the pre-processing and everything, webinar planning, sign-up forms. You guys don't have to give us your emails and all of that stuff. I see that we are live now on my phone over here. I like to just talk to you guys a little bit at the beginning of these streams because every platform that we are going live on likes to go live at a slightly different time, and I just make sure that everything's going on. But we are on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you are joining us today on any of those platforms, and if you're watching it live, not if you're catching this as a recording, we'd love to participate with you in the chats. We would love, then there's two ways to do that. You can chat on whichever platform you're coming to us on. We'll display those comments up on screen, and we'll respond to them in real time as we can get to them. Also, as you can see here on screen, we have a Twitter Spaces room opened up, which means if you are following Nimsy Insights, you can head on over to Twitter Spaces, or just Twitter. It's just your Twitter account. Follow at Nimsy_Insights, and you're going to see the option to come up and join the space. And that means you can listen, you can participate in real time, you can come up on stage and share some of your experience and advice. Today, we are talking to Iryna Rogova, who is actually here in Seattle with me, but because of circumstances outside of our control, we are doing this virtually today, and we are going to be talking a little bit about the very safe subjects to talk about live on air of geopolitics, specifically in regards to China. We got some interesting articles to go over. And stuff from Iryna and other sources from The Economist. Iryna, tell us a little bit about yourself, though, before we get started. I want to know what brings us together today. How did this all come about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I'm so excited. So I have been in localization industry for the past 7 to 8 years, and I started at VoiceBox Technologies a long time ago, and I was a translator, Russian translator back there. And then I transitioned to Tableau, where I spent nearly 6 years doing project and program management, also related to localization. I left Tableau a few months back, just decided that I want to move on to maybe move into consulting. And geopolitics is something that interests me these days. Is very dear to my heart, and I'm super excited to talk about this today.
There's a lot to talk about in these, and as I was mentioning to you before the call, we actually here at Nimsy Insights we help moderate. Let me get rid of all this stuff over here. We help moderate a bi-weekly call with leaders, global leaders, usually like VPs of international or localization directors, globalization directors, where we actually just go over the latest geopolitics, geopolitical, geocultural things that brands need to be aware of, and discuss how different brands are responding to that. And it's not much, it's a closed group because this is such a sensitive subject. This isn't something that you want to open up to just anybody. It's not something that you want to be reporting on. So like when we get together and we talk about this together, we're not able to do it in a public forum, which is fine. That's by design. So I'm really excited to have you on today, and we can talk about this publicly and try not to put our foot in our mouth too much. But one of the first articles that you had brought up here is to talk to us a little bit about this.
Yes, absolutely. That was an article written by Cheryl Eiffel, and she speaks to the current responsibility, social responsibility that businesses should acknowledge, because these days in 2021, it's no longer just business. It's always
Mm.
politics are always involved. As we all know,
It's
especially in
hard
New
to
York.
separate the two, right?
Absolutely, they are inseparable. And if you are, as a company, as a business, if you are benefiting from the country's freedoms and resources, and claim that you, as a business, want to invest in diversity and inclusion, you also must accept the responsibility and promote this and support those democratic values that you claim that you support. That means, if we take a fairly recent example of the Georgia state, and the laws, the voter suppressing laws that are some lawmakers are trying to introduce there. Um, as a business, as a company, you need to make sure that you oppose those discriminating laws that suppress voting rights, because you have to make that available to all. You owe that to
Right.
your customers.
Right. Well, I mean, brands end up getting pulled in different directions, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Because you've got your customers in each market, right?
Yeah.
You've got your employees, and
Mhm.
you've got government regulatory agencies, all of these different things. But one of the things that I've been super interested to find out, because we've been doing a lot of this geocultural type work here at NIMSY as well. And one thing that I've really been fascinated by is the fact that a lot of these initiatives come from like grassroots efforts within the organizations, from employees. And it's not what you think. It's like a lot of brands making decisions to change their messaging or evolve their messaging to keep up with things that are going on in the news. The assumption is that they're being pressured to do that by their customers, but that's not always the case. A lot of the times, the pressure is coming internally from the employees. Have you seen any of that? Have you found any of that?
Absolutely. And, as a person, as an individual, as someone who is politically aware and tries to keep up with the things that are going on around
Yeah,
us in the world,
it's a
not
rough
just in the
life.
US,
It's a rough
I,
life trying to stay politically aware these days.
I mean, what else do we have right now? We're cooped up at home all the time.
Right.
So I think I want to say that I am very excited about what's going on. I think it's delightful what's going on within each big and small corporation or company or business. People who work for that for those businesses, they are becoming aware of how their voice matters, and
Mm,
they can be outspoken, and it will have an impact. And it's the high time to have that impact. We are in the very advanced digital age right now that we're living in, and newer generations of people, of like the young generation of people who are growing up right now, they are no longer restricted by oh, there's not enough information. There's a deluge of information they can get their hands on, and
mm,
people's interests are shifting towards products and services that have more meaning to them. They start paying attention to businesses who care about the environment, who care about paying their employees a living age. The audience is more diverse now. If you work in marketing, you can't just not see it. Um, People deeply care about social justice these days. They choose products and companies who promote those values, and who are transparent and honest about where they pull their resources to make their business. Um, these days it's just like fairly not it's fairly easy to know, to find out more about the company that you are buying your products from, right? Where do you grow your coffee beans? Are you fair trade certified, and things like that?
and
So you
people
have to.
and
Mhm.
people actually pay attention to this. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I know that I do, and I am what 35 years old. There's a newer generation of people who grew up on Instagram, Facebook, and the internet in general, and they know where to pull that information. They know how to have their voice heard.
Yeah, and that's a completely different world. I mean, thank you for dating yourself on air. I am the same age as you, essentially. And we're at that nice like happy middle stage where it's like we're old, we're like not so old that we're ashamed of it, and we're not too young to be ashamed of it. So it's like, yeah, perfect age. But
I'm proud of my age.
I
I think I'm the best, the point. Yeah.
yes, I am. I'm being the best 37-year-old I can be. But being a 37-year-old, new technology terrifies me and frightens me. I go on the TikToks and I don't know what these kids are talking about or how you can get information in 9 seconds, but people do. People do.
Mhm.
And so there is a whole new world out there for people in all markets to share and disseminate information. And it's having a profound effect on how people respond to brands, how people
Mhm.
react to brands. And we have a great one thing that we were talking about is this great case study from H&M in
Mhm.
China. And I pulled up an article here, but also, I plugged our call that we do at Nimsy Insights, and we actually covered this last week, no, 2 weeks ago. We actually covered that in the call, and of course, I can't talk about what the actual conversations that went on there, but we can give a quick overview of it here. But I don't want to give a quick overview. That's why I have guests on this program. I want you to give a quick overview. So
You just want to put the whole responsibility onto me, which I'm fine with.
I absolutely do. I absolutely do.
um, yeah. So this
Hey,
article.
you don't be careful making fun of the person that controls what you look like on screen. Here, just saying.
So I but I mean, jokes aside, this article is something that is when you think about the when you think about the impact that you can make as a company. And H&M is one of the retailers that I love. I love their clothes. I think their style is, I mean, I buy their clothes for my stepdaughter, for myself too. And I was so excited to see that, H&M was one of the brands who pushed back on China because they were concerned by by the origin of the cotton that was they were using. And I
Yep.
know that's fairly it's probably it's fairly complex and difficult to even know where your cotton is coming from. Even if you are, if you work in H&M in like head of sales or head of supplies or whatever supplier chain, you probably don't know the all the things that happen to that cotton before it gets to you. But they were concerned, and I was so excited to see that they pushed back on China, and they stopped collaborating with I guess Chinese suppliers before they until they know that like what's the deal with that cotton? Where is it really coming from? Uyghurs, and I'm hoping that I'm pronouncing the name of the people correctly. But yeah, so there's the story that not even it's not even the story, the fact that the people in the geographic area Xinjiang, and you can correct me because you probably know
I,
how to pronounce that name.
I am just ignorant white boy from Seattle here. And I don't know how to pronounce
Okay,
it either. But I had
so
to pronounce. No, I do, but I'm ashamed because it's horrible. I had to ask the first time too. It's Uyghurs, and I believe it's pronounced
oh,
as
Uyghurs. Okay,
Xinjiang province in
Xinjiang.
China.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, so this region is known to be, something of having a very hard time being part of China, and China is, suppressing the human rights there, and most
Oh, there,
likely.
there's a lot going on over there with the Uyghurs. And, like we talk
Mhm,
about this almost every time we get together and talk about geopolitics and geoculture. I mean, we always talk
mhm,
about China, not always,
mhm,
but China usually has a few interesting case studies to look at.
absolutely.
And this Uyghur thing has just been in the news,
Mhm,
and as it should be. As it
mhm,
should be.
mhm,
It's not cool. It's not cool what's going on over there. And,
mhm.
bye bye to all of my Chinese Facebook followers right now who are going to get banned right now because we're saying this stuff. But it's like it's not cool what they're doing over there.
Yeah.
And a lot of Americans, because I can speak for Americans,
Mm-hmm.
kind of. A lot of Americans realize that it's not cool, and they're taking a stand and they're calling for
Mm-hmm.
change.
Mm-hmm.
And because we, as a society, have had a pretty good success rate of being able to pressure brands, and less good but equal, decent success rate, being able to pressure government to actually bring about this change in the name of social justice,
Mm-hmm.
as you mentioned it. So of course they're going to start pressuring these brands, and we've had different responses to these brands here. I've got some here, and
Mm-hmm.
well, we talked about China, but not everybody is. So here's a quick here's a quick recap here, and this is just excuse my my setup here. But all right, so in the Xinjiang Uyghur situation, the geopolitical recap, and shout out to my colleague Bob Drake for putting this together. Bob runs a lot of our geocultural stuff, and it's just a walking encyclopedia about this, together with my other colleague Michael Reed, who I actually asked to come join our Twitter Spaces if he can. And welcome, Ricardo. I see that you're in the Twitter Spaces. We are doing this live. If you have anything to add to the conversation, raise your hand. Come on up. I'm happy to bring you up on stage. Anybody else joining the Twitter Spaces as well? Excuse me. So, February 28, 2020, it all started with this report from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, ASPI. And basically, this is where it came to light that the Chinese companies, with the blessing, of course, of the party, the Chinese government, were using essentially forced labor and treating forced re-education camps, discouraging these people, suppressing culture, suppressing religion, all, the oppressive government greatest hits, let's just say, all of that was happening. So that's the background here.
Mm-hmm.
So global businesses such as H&M and Nike started making statements on this. They wanted to get ahead of this. So looking at Nike's here, Nike is committed to the ethical and responsible manufacturing, and we uphold international labor standards. We are concerned about reports of forced labor in and connected to the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Nike does not source products from the region, and we have confirmed with our contract suppliers that they are not using textiles or spun yarn from the region. Which,
Mm-hmm.
by the way, side note, like that's a whole separate conversation about how if a company's way of preventing forced labor in their supply chain is to simply ask their suppliers, their supply chain, because the supply chains they're deep, they run deep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if if a brand's only action is to make all of their direct vendors sign something that says they're not doing it,
Yeah.
how effective is that? It's not, because supply chains run deep.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry, I'm monologuing here. Let me just get through this. So that was the Nike thing. And now let's go on to the H&M response. H&M Group is deeply concerned by reports from civil society organizations and media that include accusations of forced labor and discrimination of ethno-religious minorities in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. We strictly prohibit any type of forced labor in our supply chain, regardless of the region. And so, very similar, very similar responses. But
Yeah.
let's look at moving on here. Western brands face growing Chinese backlash over Xinjiang cotton stance.
And I think H&M had to kind of like pull back from what they said initially. Originally, they said, okay, we're not sure. We don't want to use we don't want to be accountable for this forced labor. We respect human rights. And then once they saw that backlash that was they faced in China, how their retailer, how their stores were closed, how much revenue they're starting to lose, and the Chinese government is very powerful in how they can make their celebrities and influencers work their marketing tools, and we all know that the marketing. Chinese marketing is very successful in when you want to promote your products or services, you just give that product to a bunch of influencers, and that's how you do marketing in China, because that's one of the most powerful tools there. You don't just run paid search or paid digital ads, right?
Right.
And so I think that's how H&M got a lot of negative publicity there, and they had to change their response. Their latest response was that they were hopeful to, amend the relationships with the Chinese, with their Chinese partners.
So
And
I,
I under,
yeah, just to, because you're just like jumping ahead in my slides, and for those of you playing along at home, like Iryna hasn't seen these slides before. She just said, "Hey, let's talk about H&M in China," and I said, "Hey, I think Nimsy has some research on that." So we pulled it up here. But yeah, so products being pulled. Yeah, so basically, in an effort, let me know if I'm getting this right, Iryna.
Mhm.
In an effort to appease international outrage around forced labor in the supply chain and from the Uyghur Autonomous Region over in China, H&M put out a statement saying we not only do not use forced labor, but we condemn it. We wholesale condemn the use of forced labor in our supply chains, and we're not using anything from that zone. And people were happy, and the peasants rejoiced, right? Like everyone, oh, the social justice folks, yay, good for you guys, we're back you. But they pissed off the Chinese, right? Because this has been, what's happened is there's been a, sorry, I'm going to quit clicking around, I'm going to give someone a seizure. Is there's been a very nationalistic response in China about the use of Uyghur cotton, essentially. Like, they are proud of it, just like Americans are proud of their apple pie and bald eagles. It's like it's become politicized. And referring back to our opening, everything's being politicized these days, right? You can't separate politics from business. Landlords are kicking them out of their brick and mortar locations, the being literally erased off the map. Literally erased off of the map. They're taking off of the Baidu maps that people use to find the stores. They're just taking them off. So hashtag cancel culture, Chinese edition. I love it. Americans do not have a monopoly on cancel culture.
Right. I'm just a little concerned that when it comes to when it comes to issues like this, instead of just trying to reassure the public, the international community, that we, like, I'm talking like personifying China here, we are looking into this issue, and yes, we know there's a lot of political problems around this autonomous region, but we are making or doing our best to make sure that there's no forced labor involved in producing these goods, instead of trying to reassure the international community. The nation, the country, China in this case, they are trying um, to boycott the brands, that to put the blame or like point fingers and say, well, yes, we have this, but you Americans, you had slavery and you are still suppressing.
Shut,
um
shut your
yeah.
lying mouth. No, I'm just kidding. America
So
is
they're trying to
perfect.
just like reverse that narrative and blame other nations for, like, oh yeah, well, you also have skeletons in your closet and whatnot. We have our problems, but you too. It's not about that. It's trying to, we do. I mean, I'm not an American yet. I'm Ukrainian. Ukrainians have their
Don't worry.
problems too.
No,
Everyone.
nobody's perfect, Iryna. Nobody's perfect.
That's right. That's right. Thank you for putting that in a simple sentence for me. I'm just trying to say that, why don't we just like embrace the humanity and like be more humane, and trying to respect each other's rights, and trying to work towards the better future.
But who's we? Who's we? Right? Does we include brands?
We as people, like community, global community,
Yeah, you're.
instead of just that's my point.
So
Like, this
that's
is
the
what
difference
upsets
between a
me.
35-year-old and a 37-year-old is that 2 years you just become a complete cynic. Because I'm like, nah, we are not going to do that as a society. I wish we could. All right, I wish we could. And I think talking about it, like what we do, like what we're doing right now, I think this is how we do that. This is how we come to understandings
Mhm,
across borders.
mhm.
Um, Really quickly, let's jump into the comments here. Constantino de Miguel, hey, how are you, sir? Good to put pressure on unacceptable Chinese behavior. Let's bring you up here. On unacceptable Chinese behavior, how about Islamic countries that suppressed human rights against women? Pinpointing China, how about Islamic countries or conditions of illegal immigrants in the U.S.?
Mhm.
Ooh, all right, let's go there.
Is that question to me?
Uh,
Um, I have no knowledge. I mean, I have no expertise in that. I'm sure there's so much like going on that we just don't have enough time on our hands to discuss all of this. But yes, if you want to just send us, more information, and I'm happy to discuss this again on air. But there's just like so much, you know, evil in this world going on that it's yeah, we need to talk about these issues, and there are so many issues surrounding women's rights. And just recently I read an article on how, now that the US troops are pulling out of Afghanistan, so like the women's rights, the women are again that one segment of population that are going to be that are going to be left with, again, no resources of, no educational resources. Nothing has changed for the women there. And probably the situation now with the American troops pulling out of there is not going to be better for the women again, like either. So it's hard.
Well, and,
It's
and that's what it comes down to, and we touched upon this. And once again, thank you for the comments, Miguel. Oh, we have another comment here from Xinjiang. I have some questions for you. One, have you ever been to China? I have not been to China or Xinjiang province. Two, if not, how do you know the real Xinjiang? I don't. Okay, she's calling us out here. Good for you. What makes you believe that there's forced labor? Because it's in the news. There's been reporting about
Mhm.
it. Did H&M show any proof that their cotton supply chain have forced labor involved? No, they didn't. That's okay. So this is a really good point. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Do you know that cotton farming in China is highly mechanized? So this is a really good point that she brings. Or I'm assuming it's she. I don't see a picture. I'm sorry. Did H&M show any proof in their cotton supply chain that they have forced labor involved? And no, I don't think they did. I don't
No,
think
I
they
don't
did.
think they did
And
either. But
I
yeah.
think there, and this is going back to like, are you as a brand actively, like, are you concerned about appeasing, right?
Mhm.
Or are you concerned, like, appeasing the masses, like, with statements? Or are you concerned about actually addressing concerns that are relevant to each market? And those concerns are going to be different. Those concerns in China are different than the concerns in the US. And for to make a statement like this, H&M, I would think the burden of proof is on them to actually like show an audit report or something rather than just saying we don't use forced labor.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know. It's not. What do you think, Irina?
Yeah, like how do you you can just put that disclaimer out there, but do you like yeah, what's the proof behind that? Like, how can we fact check you, I guess?
Yeah.
Right. Do you know what cotton farming is just highly mechanized? Oh, well, have you ever been to China?
I don't see how the
Yeah,
mechanized is really
yeah.
relevant here to this
I
conversation.
mean, is this person trying to prove us wrong? If so, if there any more information that they can give us to convince us not to believe the news that are, broadcast globally.
Yeah.
It's not just the U.S. that is trying to incriminate China here. So yeah, if you Zhu, if you have any information, any knowledge of, that we don't have, that you can just pinpoint to us and prove us wrong, I would be happy to look into that as
Yeah.
well. You know.
Let's talk. Let's talk. Come on in. Join the Twitter Spaces. Happy to
I
host you
think we need some
up here.
critical thinking here. I
Yeah.
think we do, and it's not that we're just blaming China for every single thing that's gone wrong in the world. It's not about that.
No,
Everyone
no,
has
no,
their
no,
own
no.
problems here. We in the U.S. there's a lot of racial injustice,
But
and there in Russia there's opposition, the jailed opposition right now, and Putin has been really tightening the screws there on everyone who's opposing him, who's opposed his politics. So it's not that just like China is the big villain of the world. Everyone has their issues and their
no, the
problems.
big villain of the world is obviously America. Americans have worked hard for that title in recent years. But let's move on to, because this leads nicely into the response that H&M gave to China, addressing Chinese concerns. Because talking about, are people actually addressing concerns, or are they just putting out statements, right? And
Mhm, mhm,
if they're actually addressing the concerns, or even if they're just putting out statements, what they have to be doing is addressing the concerns of each market, because not every market is going to respond the same way. And particularly, markets are not, different countries are not looking at causes of what we call in America social justice, which is
mhm,
a loaded term, but it's the best descriptor for this. Other markets aren't actively they're not actively, they're not mirroring the same conceptions. Like when they talk about social justice, first of all, a lot of countries have been doing a better job at that for a very long time than America. So it's like, what is there to talk about? But different concerns across countries. So let's look at this. H&M response to firestorm in China over Xinjiang cotton. So this is the release that, pull it up here. This is the release that was sent to China. It says, some background. H&M released a new statement on March 31st, 2021, calling China, quote unquote, a very important market, stating they have a, quote unquote, long-term commitment to China and vowed to regain the trust and confidence of customers, colleagues, and business partners in the country. H&M said it wants to be a responsible buyer in China and elsewhere, and is now building forward-looking strategies and actively working on steps with regard to material sourcing. The statement does not mention Xinjiang, and H&M did not indicate whether they would be using Xinjiang cotton. So
mhm,
I'm assuming, and help me out here in the comments, guys. But my understanding is that what the Chinese market was wanting from H&M was for them to be using Xinjiang cotton, right? But at the very least, not be bad mouthing Xinjiang cotton, because they're very proud of it. So here's the statement. I'll just read it. We are working together with our colleagues in China to do everything we can to manage the current challenges and find a way forward. China is a very important market to us, and our long-term commitment to the country remains strong. Having been present there for more than 30 years, we have witnessed remarkable progress within the Chinese textile industry. Being at the forefront of innovation and technology, China, ain't that the truth? If you've ever been to China and you think America is leading the world in tech, no. Like, you go to a Chinese city and it's like an episode of Star Trek. Sorry, I digress. We are proud of development. We want to continue contributing to driving progress together with our partners and stakeholders in the country. We want to be a responsible buyer in China and elsewhere, and are now building forward-looking strategies and actively working on next steps with regard to material sourcing.
mhm,
Together with all relevant stakeholders, we want to collaborate to be part of the solution and jointly build a more sustainable fashion industry. As a global
mhm.
company, we comply with the local laws and regulatory frameworks in all the markets where we operate. Our company values are built on trust, respect, integrity, and dialogue. We wish to focus on our core business and on what we do best, bringing fashion and design to our customers all around the world. I love this. Essentially, like, let us do our jobs.
Well, they had to. I mean, they are an international brand. They had to put out a statement. They're probably like their revenues are being right now. They're they're losing money. So they had to reassure their partners and their customers that they're working on something to resolve, to remedy the situation.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I mean, but at least I appreciate any right now. I really like that the brands are trying at least to do something about it. They are putting out statements. They are listening to their consumers. They
But
are watching, the global news. They are more aware of the political situation around them. They are trying to make it right by the consumer and by people, just trying to respect their human rights as well.
but
But
how
yeah,
does that, like, putting out
at a certain
messages? I'm sorry. Okay, go. I won't
yeah, at a
interrupt you.
certain point, they just also need to think about business as well, right? And real.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're not a charity, right? So the bottom line, it's not evil to think about your bottom line. I'm sorry. Like, it's not. I don't think that's evil. It's evil if you do evil things in the name of your bottom line. But let's not use words like evil, because that's a loaded term here. But how do you respond in today's globalized world where information is just available to anybody?
Mhm, mhm,
When you are in multiple markets, and your different markets have polar opposite expectations from you. So one market wants you using Uyghur cotton, another market wants you not only not using Uyghur cotton, but completely disavowing Uyghur cotton.
mhm.
And what's happening?
I have no question. I don't have a question to that. As a brand, you should probably have
I,
people like a whole department who
yeah, I don't
who
think I
think
have.
about that.
Yeah, I don't think I
Yeah,
was expecting an answer.
it's just like but you have to think about the ethics of how you do business, where you source your supplies from, and I don't want to. I have no intention to disrespect anyone when I talk about China and about Chinese treatment of Uyghurs. Is that the pronunciation?
Uyghurs, yeah,
Uyghurs.
Uyghurs.
Um, I just can't ignore the news, and I'm sorry, but those news that I choose to read,
Yeah,
that
we don't
they
need to
are
justify
respectable. Yeah,
that we're talking about this. It's in the
yeah.
news. It's in the reports. It's happening.
Mhm,
If you have counter information, yeah, join in the comments. Let's have that
mhm,
debate in the
mhm,
comments. But yeah, we don't need to sit here and apologize for talking about Uyghur cotton in China. It's in the news. It's happening, and it's affecting what brands
mhm,
are doing. And
mhm,
trust me, the brands that I'm talking to, well, not all of them, because not everyone has supply chains in China, but the ones that do, they kind of need help navigating this. And to your
mhm,
point, is like, how do you do that? Do you have a whole internal team
mhm,
that's responsible for this? Do you rely upon your in-country teams to help manage that? And obviously, those in-country teams at certain companies didn't sign off on certain press releases before they were sent, right?
mhm,
So the
mhm,
bigger the organization, the more complex it is to make sure
mhm,
that all of the cross departmental and cross market values are in alignment.
mhm.
Um, it's complex. It's complex, and that's why people like you know
You and
these.
I talk about that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would love to talk about more things.
Yeah, let's. We had. Oh, you want to really get spicy? We can go to this
Oh my God.
saucy blog here. Tell me about this.
Well, so that was something that I wrote the just a few days ago, and I posted it. I posted a link to this article of mine on LinkedIn, on my LinkedIn profile, and it's just something that I'm like, oh my God, where was I like a few years ago when the whole like story with Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein was going on, and
Oh God,
I
we're gonna
mean,
we're gonna be talking about Harvey Weinstein now. Jesus. All right, clear your
well, this is
calendars.
what you brought this up. You
Okay,
brought
okay,
it
okay,
up,
okay, okay.
and this is the blog that I write in
And
my
and if you're not, if go follow Iryna right now. You've got her LinkedIn right there, floating above her head. Go follow Iryna because yeah, she's putting out these blogs and they're good. And you have one follower. That is a travesty right there.
I
I
I
know.
am not about I'm not
I
about the
know, I
number
know,
of
and it's on
followers.
Medium. Who has a Medium account these days? I don't.
I do.
You well, yeah. I found you on LinkedIn, not Medium. So, all right, sorry, I digress. Let's go back.
Anyway, why I chose to put it out there. So recently I finished reading this book, Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrell.
Mm.
And Ronan is, I had told you about that. He's a son of Amir Farrell and Woody Allen. And he was the one, he is an investigative journalist. And he was the one who broke the story of Harvey Weinstein and, the whole investigation. He led the investigation into his the years and years of his sexual misconduct and sexual harassment, and it was just eye opening and completely just like mind blowing to read that book. Highly recommended to everyone who is into this kind of things, and I am. I
You're
don't
into
like
sexual
fiction.
predators.
I just no. I just like reading real life stories and real life
Fascinating, like
investigations.
psychology. Yeah, there's because
It's,
there's a whole psychology behind this. Yeah.
and why it's also kind of like connected to politics was one of the facts that the author brings up in this book was that Harvey Weinstein was one of the I think he was one of the political donors, but most importantly, he was a fundraiser for uh, Hillary Clinton, who was then a presidential candidate. She was running for president in the United States. And when I read that, and I remember like rooting for Hillary back then. And I remember all those, speeches that she was giving on like, or people who were defending her, saying that, like she's a feminist. She kind of like just like built her campaign um, on like feministic ideals and how every girl out there she deserves to be heard and so on and so forth. Um, and then I read that yeah, she had Harvey Weinstein was her fundraiser, and her then presidential campaign staff was concerned of this investigation that Ronan Farrell was conducting at that time. He specifically calls it out in his book, and they got in touch with him, and it was of a concern to them that he was investigating Harvey Weinstein, because yeah, he was one of the donors. He was bringing money to the table, and it's just heartbreaking to read that kind of
Right.
stuff. And that's why I wrote this article, because I thought, OMG,
Huh.
you don't understand like what as a just a human person, as a human person, as an individual, you don't understand the depth of those ties between the politics, the entertainment industry, and whatnot. Um, and and like the whole just like the whole hypocrisy of Hillary Clinton's campaign taking money from Harvey Weinstein, and claiming that feministic values were important to her, and what's so on and so forth. And he was eventually accused of sexual harassment and rape. So
He's
yeah,
convicted.
yeah,
He was
and convicted.
convicted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think by the time of Pharaoh's book, but really quickly because it's bothering me, so I want to just go back to the comments really quickly before we move on. Constantino mentions, I think there is a lot of China bashing. It's on the political agenda that suits Washington. I don't disagree, Constantino. I don't disagree. That goes with our theme here of everything is politicized these days. But I am happy to bash any. I'm happy to bash
Any
any
other
country.
country.
I'm happy to bash any country. Dear Lord, we've been bashing America here for a while because there's plenty to bash here. But thank you, Constantino. Thank you, Iana. I want to say Zhu, and thank you. Oh, Iryna and Konstantin are the only ones in the comments. You guys want to keep the conversation go? Leave a comment. While you're here, make sure to like and subscribe to Nimdzi, whatever platform you're watching this on. Why? Because that's how you get notified when we go live. When we pop up, you'll get a notification directly to your feed. All right. Iryna, back to you. What does Harvey Weinstein have to do with Alexei Navalny over in Russia? Well, first of all, who the heck is Alexei Navalny? Like, tell us about. Tell us.
Tell us about your what's going on in your head, Iryna.
Yeah, yeah.
Harvey Weinstein and Alexei Navalny do not have anything in common. I mean, I hope not, because Alexei Navalny is someone
Well,
who I admire
well,
and who I
yeah. I wasn't trying to imply that they had something in common, but the blog
well,
ties the two stories
I
together.
absolutely I understand your point of view. I'm just trying to make a joke here.
Don't you put
So
words in my mouth? Don't you do it?
no, but it was just something like two stories were on my mind, and I didn't know how to, I couldn't really just do multiple articles. I just wanted to put it on a piece of paper and post it because I
Oh,
need
okay.
my thoughts to be out there. But Alexei Navalny is it's like a prominent opposition leader in Russia, and he's currently in jail, being like accused on some forged charges that he didn't show up in court for, like the whatever charge he was accused 2 years ago, and the whole case was fabricated against him. And so he's in jail right now. He is on hunger strike for like more than 2 weeks now, and he's feeling very
Oh, he's on
ill.
a hunger strike right now.
Yes.
Oh, I haven't been following that. Thank you.
Yeah, and he's been very ill because, as you know,
Because he's not eating.
last August he was poisoned
Poisoned.
by
Yeah.
novichok, and there was some, I guess, some still ramifications from, like, in his system. There's still some ramifications from that poisoning, and now he's feeling very ill, and he was trying to get the administration, the penal colony where he's situated. He was asking for a doctor, his personal doctor, to get to see him, and he was denied multiple times. He was just like plainly denied, and he went on hunger strike because of that, because he was just declined a human right of seeing a doctor.
Hmm.
And he's in the very dire condition right now, and as you might know, there were some like really big protests going on across Russia yesterday on April 21st. Navalny's team is still functioning. They're still operating. They're trying to, rally around they're trying to get that, gain that momentum and keep it going, and they're trying to have the Russian people just like keep pushing on Putin and his government, and because it's like Putin is going out of line. He's just being obnoxiously authoritarian right now, and it just has to stop. I was just so heartbroken again by the news, and I follow him and his team, and I read their news every day on Instagram, and his teams are and his people, the coordinators of their political offices, are constantly being detained on some like false charges, and their offices are being trashed and whatnot. And so I'm guessing it should be probably very difficult to conduct business with Russia, or in Russia, if you are in international
Well,
business.
it's like I don't, because I don't have a Russian connection. Like, I'm not from there. I'm not like married to a Russian. Like, but there's a lot of, we work with a lot of Russian and Russian adjacent, I'll
Mhm.
say, people here internally at Nimdzi. We have a Russian. We are our own little Russian mafia within the ranks here at Nimdzi. Shout out to Yulia Akukova. And yeah, so I don't really follow this, right? But I don't know where I was going with this, frankly. I started I started talking about
I
Nimsy.
think we were just like just going around my blog and how provocative my blog is right now, and all the scattered thoughts that I have there. Anyway, yeah. So it's not that we're focused on just one country, one political system here. We're just trying to make sense of how is it to lead business, like to do business now these days in any country whatsoever, and what should your values be as a business owner, as a company. You have, especially if you have if you're a customer facing business, if you have consumers there, if you have employees there to keep satisfied, right? And like, what do you do? It's very it's a controversial, it's complex to have your own business now. And
Yeah, yeah. Let's just bring it on back to that. I think that's probably a good place because that's where we started out here is how to brands and deal. I talk about brands, not businesses, right? Because every not every business is a brand, and not every business has a brand, and not every brand is a
Mhm.
business kind of thing. Because the brand can change across markets, right? The brand can be adapted. The brand can be localized to markets, but the business is the business. So that's why I like to talk about brands rather than that. And the answer we don't have an answer today. I mean, the what we have today and what we will continue to have is there are no easy answers to this. My final thoughts on it are, though, that what's important is you take a stand.
Mhm.
Like on, you need to take a stand and you need to stick by it, and you need to not. You need to listen to your customers. You need to listen to your customers in all of the markets, but you don't need to do what they demand. And I think that's where brands get it wrong. Like you don't have to try to appease the masses. And when I say get it wrong, like because what happens is it's never enough kind of syndrome. And also, if it's not authentic coming from a brand, people can tell. People can really
Mhm.
tell if something's not authentic. And we talked about Nike a little bit earlier, and they're a great example. I like to use them as an example of responding to social pressure, responding to social demand, I would say,
Mhm.
in the US during the Black Lives Matter movement starting in 2020, which goes back, right? But
Mhm.
specifically talking about 2020. Why?
Mhm.
Because that's when brands really started putting messaging out there around this.
Mhm.
And the reason, and Nike was very successful, they were very well received. Their message was received, relatively speaking. And the reason for that is because it was coming from a place of authenticity and they had put in the work. Like they had been talking to, engaging with, building communities with the global and specifically the American Black community for years. They already had that relationship. They already had that trust and respect. So when they put out a statement saying yes, Black Lives Matter, it's authentic, right? And you compare that with another brand. I think the brand that we discussed in the call that we run was L'Oreal. Do not quote me on that. But I think it was a makeup brand. And they put
Mhm.
out like a very similar statement, a very, very similar statement. Just like we saw the two statements from Nike and H&M on Uyghur cotton, but met with huge backlash, right? And these are both brands that are very personal. One's apparel and one is stuff that you put on your face, right? I don't know
Mhm.
how much more you get, how much more intimate you get than that with someone. So that's like my takeaway for today. Let's continue the conversation for sure, guys. If you're watching this in the comments, join the conversation in the comments. Don't be shy. If you are shy, reach out. Follow, connect with Iryna, connect with myself. But before we wrap up, Iryna, what are your closing thoughts?
Um, I
Closing arguments on the very
closing argument.
organized and structured conversation that just took place.
I think what I would like the listeners to take away from this is that if you are engaged in marketing activities, if you do marketing, maybe think about making your marketing more authentic and more relevant to the world, to the outside world these days. Don't just make a generic messaging or don't craft a generic messaging. Be a little bit more a little bit more crafty, a little bit more resourceful. Listen to what matters to the customers that you are trying to target, and then craft your message from there. So yeah, and be socially aware, be politically aware, because that's what matters to people right now. Just try to listen. Don't do everything that your consumers want you to do, right? Or your employees want you to do, because you can't appease like you can't appease to everyone. Um, but it's not about that. It's like every company has a mission. Every company has a mission statement on their website. So just live up to that mission statement. If it has, we respect human rights and we have these values, just live up to that. Don't just make a, don't just make it like a web page that doesn't mean anything, right?
Here, here. And do it for the right reasons. And if you can't do it for the right reasons, do it because you will get found out. Right? If you're putting out different press releases in China and you are in the US, guess what? There's machine translation. And, people in China will be able to read your US press releases and people in the US will be able to read your Chinese press releases. So the message, be careful with the message. But with that, complete non-answer. We're leaving here with more questions than usual, or more questions than we have answers, but that's pretty
Mhm.
typical, I think, for conversations about this. Guys out there, if you're following this, we're done live now, but if you're watching this later, make sure, like I said before, like and subscribe, all of that stuff. If you're not subscribed to Nimsy Insights, either on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of that stuff, the platform of your choice, then you won't get notified when we do these pop-up events. If you have an idea for a pop-up event, you have a topic that you'd like to see us discuss, if you have a message that you'd like to say, to put out there in the world, let me know. Let me know. I'm very interested in providing platforms to interesting people with interesting things to talk about. Really quickly, a reminder that Nimsy Insights is a market research and consulting company. We do a lot of work with global companies that are looking to optimize their go-to-market, their everything that's required to do business in international markets, essentially. A strong focus on translation, technology, machine translation, a strong focus on user experience research, culturalization research, all that stuff. If you'd like to know more, reach out to me or visit www.nimsy.com. And I'll ask you all to join me in please thanking Iryna Rogova for being brave enough to come up here unprepared. No, not unprepared, but we didn't prepare for this. And
Yeah, we did.
so thanks for coming up and just having a conversation live on air. Thank you to Constantino and Iana in the comments for participating in the conversation. With that,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
long.
Tucker. Thank you, everyone.
We'll play us out here.